All right, so this is a review activity for our Adobe Illustrator unit in multimedia. We are going to create this logo, or whatever you want to call this, for this random company called Sevenski. And so here we go. I'm going to walk through it. If you want to download the files from Canvas, there's an Illustrator practice folder in the files, and you can begin with this document. So first off, if we look at the finished one, it's flipped the other direction. So one of our first items of business is going to be to flip this. So that's to transform, and you'll recall that when we right-click and transform, the one that mirrors is called reflect. So we'll flip it this way and hit OK. If you don't see it flip, you can just check that preview button and hit OK. All right, next we've got to digitize this, and one of the first things you should probably do is turn on that transparency grid under View so that you can actually see that these do have backgrounds on them, and we don't want them to have those. Plus, we need these to be vectors and paths so that we can actually do something with them, change colors, cut them, and so forth. So to do that, when you're clicked on an image, it will say Image, and then you're going to choose Image Trace. If we choose the drop-down arrow, in most cases, silhouettes will do it, and then it'll even get rid of the background. If you don't choose Silhouette as your preset and you do a black and white logo, it's going to leave the background on there, which is okay, but you would have to then ungroup it. So you kind of have to decide what it is that you need. In this case, silhouette is fine, but then there's still one more step because this still doesn't have this into paths and lines, as you can see, and that is to expand. So expand for clip art is kind of like create outlines is for text. So I'm going to hit expand. And then bam, now it's into its individual pieces. Now remember, this is a group now. If I wanted to, have this all treated as one, I might make it a compound path. But I'm not going to do that in this case because we're actually going to cut it into pieces and make it different colors. So therefore, it is not a good candidate to be a compound path. All right. However, it is grouped, and we are going to need to ungroup it to do some additional things because while it's grouped, we can't punch it. We can't do all of those different things. Okay, so I'm going to ungroup it and click off of it. And now I should be able to click on its component parts. All right, same situation here. I'm going to image trace this picture. Black and white won't work on this one, so we'll go to silhouette. All right, that works nice, and we'll hit expand. So what we're going to do lastly here to this little snowflake is we're going to take this S and we're going to punch it out. We're going to need to make the S smaller to do that. But the bigger thing is the S is right now not a path. It is a letter. So we have to turn it into a path. Notice that we don't see the shape of the S here, but when we hit Create Outlines, we will. So now it is a path. So I've got this and I've got that. And I'm going to select both and then punch the front. So Shape Modes minus front. There we go. So now I can take this snowflake and use it to punch this helmet. This is a compound path and this is a path, so these will punch just fine. So I'm going to grab a hold of this, hold Shift from the corner so that I can resize it without messing it up. Make it just big enough to fit up in there, and then again select both and minus front. You should have a little S in the middle. And you're probably going to need to make this little guy here a compound path because otherwise the S will get lost. So Object, Compound Path Make, or Control 8, and that keeps that all together like so. Okay, so we've got that going on. Some additional items that we're going to do. Let's go ahead and take a look at the finished form again. You can see that we have the hat is changed to colors, or the helmet is changed colors. We have a gradient here, and then we have some other color changes. So let's just deal with the basic color changes first. We'll change this to red. So I'm just going to click on it and choose a plain red from the swatches panel where the colors are. Oops. Notice that changed the wrong thing. It's because I had the wrong thing on top. I don't want a fill, so I'll change the fill to null or no fill. I mean the stroke. I don't want a stroke, so I'll change the stroke to null. And then I'll click this to put it on top. Now that fill is on top, if I choose red, it will work. There we go. Let's see. We're going to add red here, but we're not ready to do that because we haven't made that part yet. So let's go ahead and skip that, and then we'll deal with these gray parts. So this big long piece needs to be gray. So I'll click on it, and since we're ungrouped, we shouldn't have any problems. I'm going to choose this gray here. And then we have a couple of other places as well, here and here. But notice these are connected. So we're going to have to chop these into two, these pieces. Yours don't have to be in the exact same spot. But so here's this one. I'm going to take my knife tool, which hides under the eraser. Just going to give it a slice here. And then there's going to be one over on the other side, up here at the top. So we'll just knife that here. Oh, I got to click on it first. Got to click on it first. Take my knife and kind of go through there. All right, so now we have our separate pieces. Again, I'm going to have to click off of it, click back on, make it gray. And this one, I think it was the bottom part that was gray. Yeah, and we're going to do that. So that takes care of those. So we got our color changes made. We used our knife and we fixed that up. Now, a couple of other things we have to do. We're going to have to warp this text to look like this, and we're going to have to draw this creation here. And then notice this is all one object. This is one big compound path. So, and then we have a gradient. We'll wait to this gradient because it uses the same gradient as this part, so we'll do those parts together. So let's look at this bottom part here. It's basically just a polygon of some sort. We can just use our pen tool and kind of draw something that's sort of like that. Again, it wouldn't have to be identical. Notice, though, we got rid of this little stick here. So we're going to just go ahead and completely get rid of that. Okay, all is good. And now we're going to draw something coming from the hand, as you can see here. So that's the hand we're going to draw. So I'll take my regular pen tool right here and draw something to kind of connect it, and then sort of a trapezoid sort of shape. So we'll just kind of connect a little bit. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You could even go out a little bit first like this. And then click, and click, and wherever you want to make this go, click. You could come here even, click, and then connect it back. So something like that. Doesn't have to be identical, but something like that. Remember, if you need to change any of your points, you just click on the direct selection tool, click on a point, and then pull a point. And you can do that with any point as long as you click it first. Okay, so we've got that on there. Now these all need to become one shape. So once again, we'll grab both and unite that as one shape. So we've got that taken care of, but we still need to punch out the word at the bottom. So Sevenski, which is already on our document. We just got to go find it. Here it is. It's got an interesting shape to it. So if we look carefully, we can see that it kind of comes down. It's kind of comes down like this. So first off, let's go ahead and find the warp. That's under Effect. Gonna come here to Warp. Not sure which one. Maybe Shell Lower or something. Doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. Well, that would be okay. That's probably not the one that it is. Probably Arc Lower. Yeah, that looks about right. And you may have to just, fudge through these. If it's something that's going up, you may have to, move it a little bit or make it go the other direction or whatever. But I'm going to say this is probably Arc Lower. You can go ahead and make it look something like the other one and hit OK. We're going to then notice that it's not actually applied to the text. If we put this on top of here, we're not going to see the letters doing that. And if we, oops, let's scoot this over. And if we tried to punch with it, it wouldn't work because it's not paths. So here's the thing. If we create outlines here, notice it's still, well, in this case, it's still not completely right. Like it's got some weird stuff going on. See? So it creates outlines, but the outlines are still straight. So that's where we have to go one more step like we do with clip art, and we have to expand it. And that's going to fill it in so it's not just straight paths. So Object, Expand Appearance. Now I can take this in here, and I'm going to just kind of resize it a little bit so that it fits in. Again, doesn't have to be exactly perfect. And then we should be ready to minus front. Now, this one is not in the front because we drew this other thing last, so we're going to have to change the order. So I'm going to right-click and Arrange and send this to the back so that these letters are now in the front. See, we can kind of see that they are. You can use your arrow key on your keyboard just to nudge the words a little bit, but now I should be able to minus front. There we go. And this should be a compound path, but if for some reason it's not, you would make it a compound path at this point. Okay? All right, we're almost finished here. We have just a couple little things to do, and that is we're going to apply a gradient and then a double stroke on here. A gradient and a double stroke. The gradient booklets are located in the swatches under the libraries. You're just going to click on gradients. The one I used on this one is under metals. So we'll go to metal. Oops, gradient and metals. And then I believe I used this one here, pewter radial. It's a radial gradient that goes inside out. So, oops, I didn't click on it first. I hate when that happens. So there we go. So there's that. And then we'll do that same one to the, there we go, looks good. And then lastly, we've just got to double stroke the rest of this. That's going to be the appearance panel. So you should have your appearance panel open. Make sure you're clicked on here. We have two strokes. One is black, one is red. So you're going to click to add a stroke. You'll just kind of have to eyeball it a little bit. So let's say 3. And then here we add another stroke. So you can add a second stroke. The one that's down below, the lower one, has to be the bigger number. So when I change this one to say black, this has to be a smaller number than the 3 or you won't be able to see it. So there we go. We have a double stroke here. Now notice this one, it just looks like double, like it's red and black. The one that I have, it's like red, black, red. And that's because of the way the stroke is aligned. So when you go to the stroke panel, you have different alignments of the stroke. So right now it's aligned on the middle. That's why the red is showing up on both sides of the black. But if I align it to the inside, it will look like this. So you can see what that looks like. Or I can click back up on here and align it to the outside. So you've got different choices and they're all going to make it look different. And I don't care as long as you have a double stroke what it looks like. But you have to do it on both. So like this one's still going outside while this one is going inside or whatever. So you kind of have to change it on both of them. It's a little bit easier to do one at a time. But now I have them both to the outside. So now it's got the double stroke just like what we see on the example. And that's pretty much it, I think. That looks about right. Your last step, of course, would be to export this out because in order to use this in a document, it would have to be exported. So to export, as a reminder, you go to Window and Asset Export. You're going to group this and then drag the group into Asset Export and give it a name. And hit Enter. And then when you export it, you just simply hit the export button and then save it to wherever you're going. It always puts it in a little 1X folder here, so that's going to go in that folder. So I'll just select my Spring 20 folder and then it should be in there. And then whenever I go and check that folder, it should indeed be in the 1X folder. There it is. And notice that it's transparent, so we cannot see it very well because of the black and the white and whatnot. But anyway, there it is. So that is how we're going to create our logos. You will have a test where you have to recreate one. It'll be just like this situation. I'll give you one. I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. I'll tell you a little bit, like if there's a certain library you need to load, I'll tell you that. Or a certain color or something. But otherwise, you've just got to look at it and make the proper changes to the proper places. Let me know if you have questions and good luck.